All right, everyone, we're going to get this kicked off. So good morning and welcome to the continuation of this year's Geisel MLK celebration. As many of you know, we actually kicked off the celebration last night by screening the documentary Lives Worth Living, which chronicled the struggle that disability advocates fought starting in the 60s and then all the way through the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. Today we also have a great lineup of speakers here to present for you as well, as you can see in your programs. And just as a reminder, after the, at 11, there's a little bit of a change. At 11 a.m., we'll be having a service activity where the Special Needs Support Center here in Lebanon will be coming in so we can do some service work with them. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker and a good friend of mine for the last 20 years. Dude, we're getting old, man. You know? And just to prove that, I was digging around and I found some yearbook photos at the house last night, so you guys got to check this out. There it is. So yeah, as you can see, our hairstyles have changed over the years. Yeah, I actually had a hairstyle back then, and you had the Slim Shady thing going. Eminem had just come out at the time, but it was cool. I think I even had like a little earring in my ear right there. Yeah, so anyways, on a more serious note, 3 years after these pictures were taken, Tanner was involved in a very serious automobile accident, and he completely lost his sight. Not only did he have to fight for his life, but also he faced a long, hard road to recovery afterwards. And one of the concepts that was introduced to me last night by one of the speakers that we had at the documentary was the notion of presumed competence. When we go to a professional office, like a doctor's office or a lawyer, we presume that they're competent in their role. Some of you might say, well, yeah, they went to years of school and, they had to pass exams and that kind of thing. So, okay, fair enough. But what about when someone becomes a parent or a pet owner or they're driving a car? We presume their competence as well. You can see that from when people cross the street around here on their phones. They're presuming the competence of those drivers. So what I'd ask you guys to think about is, when we run into people who are differently abled on the street every day, do we presume their competence? The author Kathy Snow said that there's no proof that the presence of a disability automatically confers an incompetent status. And many negative consequences result from our erroneous, unfair, and prejudicial presumptions. So, as future physicians and current allies that are sitting in the room here, one of the things I'd like you to keep in your mind as we go throughout the day is that we can make a huge difference by recognizing this principle. People with differing abilities are amazing and unique in their own ways, and sometimes you just have to look at things a little bit differently to see that. Tanner's a perfect example of this. As a normally abled adult, he completely lost his sight in an instant. And today he's the greatest hitter in the National Baseball Association. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure if someone threw a beeping baseball at me and I was blindfolded, it'd hit me in the face. I definitely would not hit it. So props for that, man. He's also a 2-time national cycling champion. And if that's not amazing enough, he also represented us as a Team USA member in the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. In his professional life, he's been a TEDx speaker, an author, and he's currently the executive director of My Blind Spot, which is an organization that works to provide outreach, advocacy, education, and services to ensure equal access to employment, education, recreation, and independent living opportunities for people with disabilities. He's truly an amazing individual who has overcome so much and continues to break new barriers every day. I'm very proud to call him my friend. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Tanner Gers, everyone.
Thank you so much, bro. Wow. Woo, that was fire. So we can all pack it up and go home. Oh, man. Can you guys hear me okay? Yep. All right, cool. Trying to find this table here. Beautiful. That's what I needed. Sean. Yes. Chad, thank you guys so much for bringing me here. It literally means the world to me. I can't tell you how much it means to me. and everybody for coming. Your attention means the world to me. Especially with the weather going on right now, Phoenix, mid-70s didn't really prepare me for this morning. So, I'm fascinated by a few things that happen on a regular basis. One of the things that I'm fascinated about right now, I just posted this to Insta and to LinkedIn, is that, what makes somebody think that they're better than anyone else? What makes somebody think that they're better than anyone else? Think, believe, behave, act like they're better than somebody else. So like I said, I live in Phoenix, and I live in Midtown area. It's a nice part of town. I live on the 3rd floor, and I've got this beautiful guide dog. I think she's a guide dog. She's gorgeous. She's a German Shepherd, pure breed. And I think that her good looks just might be the best attribute about her. Each day I take her out, about 3 times a day I take her out, and we got to go from the 3rd floor. We take the elevator down to the underground parking garage. We make our way out of the underground parking garage up to the 1st level again. And she's got to use the bathroom, and she's easily distracted. Some of the main things that get her so distracted are playing ball, fetch. She loves to play fetch. And people and dogs. She loves people. She loves dogs especially. And she's often so distracted because I live in this really busy area of town. She's often so distracted, it takes a really long time for her to go to the bathroom. Super long time. The best way that I've found to get her focused, right, it's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do type of thing. The best way I've gotten her to use the bathroom, to go number 2, is to lead by example. So I'm thinking I might have to, drop trow again. And right then, she starts pulling on the leash really hard. She's distracted. And right then, where she's pointing, I hear some footsteps behind me. And so I turn because I'm thinking that this person, these footsteps, might have a dog with them. And so I turn and I say, "Do you have a dog with you?" I say it loud, like that, blatant, right where the dog, Zara, is pointing. And that's exactly what I heard. So I rephrased the question. "So you don't have a dog with you?" Again, confused. Clearly, I'm talking to them. My dog has their attention. They have my attention. I say it in simple English that anyone who understands English can understand, and I elevate my voice even further. "Do you have a dog with you?" And I'm empathetic to that because my skull is pretty thick. Nothing. 3 times. 3 times I asked him a simple question. So I roll my eyes and I turn back to the street and I tell her to get busy, do your business. And then I hear a voice, a man's voice from behind me. It speaks. "Can I ask you a question?" And I turn. I say, "Excuse me? Can I ask you a question about your dog?" This will be interesting. "Sure, go ahead." "Is that a guide dog?" he says. Yeah, it is a guide dog." "Cool. What does she help you do?" "Well, a few different things. She helps me cross the streets. She helps me get around obstacles. She helps me get safely from point A to B. That's what she helps me do." Wow. Do you do anything else? That's an interesting question. Do you do anything else? I'm not sure what he means by that. I mean, because that's not really a question that we would ask one another, is it? It's not the next question in a typical conversation that might sound something like this. What do you do? What do you do for a living? Or even more pointedly, do you work or do you go to school? Right? That's what he would mean by that. And so I'm not sure what he means by do I do anything else? And so I asked for clarification. What do you mean, do I do anything else? I mean, do you do anything else during the day? I understand now. It's clear. He's operating from a belief, from a thought, an idea. He doesn't really care if I do anything for a living. In fact, he doesn't even think that's possible. Do I do anything else? He must mean, do I do anything else? Am I capable of doing anything else besides being her personal pooper scooper? Well, yeah, I do a couple things. I'm executive director of an international nonprofit. We work with major international corporations. We help people like me access their websites and mobile apps freely and as equally as you do. And when we're not saving the digital world, I'm an inspirational speaker. Wow, so you do everything by Braille. You do it by touch. Clearly, he's not interested in what I do for a living, even though he now knows it. He's not interested in what I do or who I am. He's still busy trying to answer the questions that he was asking himself at the same time I was asking him some very basic questions. When I was asking him if he has a dog with him, in his mind, he's running through these questions. He's busy. He's consumed by this thought, this idea about me. No, sir, I don't know Braille. I actually use something called a screen reader. It's a special software. It allows me to do the things that I do on a daily basis, like write the books that I've published, or the blog posts that I publish on a regular basis, or write emails, or shop online, book, travel. That's what I use when I need to do the things I need to do on my phone or on my computer. I do everything through sound. It talks to me. Wow, that's so cool. So, you help blind people do that? Well, yes and no. I mean, we do help people like me, but I fall under a larger category. It's what we identify as print disabled. Anybody who might have a hard time physically or digitally accessing text like a book or a PDF. Or someone who has a physical impairment that prevents them from manipulating a keyboard or a mouse. Or someone who has difficulty accessing information because of another reason, like a cognitive impairment or a learning impairment. Those are the people I help. And they're what we call print disabled. Wow. And so you're a speaker too? Yes, sir. Just like right now. Wow, that's so interesting. My name's Warren. And we have yet to bridge the gap between us. He's still standing some feet away, and he starts to walk over to me. So, naturally, I say, "Hi, Warren." And I stick out my hand. My name's Tanner. And you would think that this would be the moment, right, where two individuals have achieved a level of understanding, right? We come into an embrace. We've achieved a level of respect for one another. We shake hands. But he's got another question. And he stops right there. Whoa! What? How did you know? How did you know I was coming to shake your hand? Huh. That's easy, Warren. I've been a wizard for like 35 years. Just know things. So what makes somebody think, believe, behave, act like they're better than somebody else? Warren didn't care about me or what I did or what I do. He was so consumed with my difference, with my disability. When I was asking him a simple question, do you have a dog with you? He was trying to answer the question about how he would do things. He was trying to conceive, how would I find a partner? How would I find someone to share my life with? How would I create a family, raise a family? How would I go to the grocery store, check the mail? How would I do anything? How would I get a job? How would I raise this? How would I provide? How would I do anything else? How would I do anything else besides pick up poop if I'm blind? He couldn't figure it out. He just couldn't. I experience situations like this all the time. People like this all the time. It happens at scale. It happens all the time. And I think that it represents this antiquated belief, a social stigma, a stereotype, a blind spot that's hovering over America. Individuals, corporations, society at large. That when they see a disability, when they see a difference that they can't really understand, they immediately draw conclusions based on their experience, based on their beliefs, based on this one thing that I think you guys already know, why he treated me like that. I know you wouldn't do anything like that. I'm speaking to a room full of some of the brightest minds in the nation. But he treated me like that because it's something he learned. He learned that. And unfortunately, even deeper, I think that it became a belief. It became even worse, an unconscious bias. Because if you ask him directly, you ask Warren, hey, are you better than Tanner? He would deny it. He would say, no way. We're equal. Yet he doesn't treat anybody else like that. He doesn't ask somebody, how did you know I was going to come shake your hand? He doesn't ask other people, do you do anything else? Meaning, you don't work, what else can you possibly do? He doesn't treat other people like that. You know, I have an interesting perspective on this. Because for the first 21 years of my life, I've never, ever experienced a situation like this one time. For the first 21 years of my life, I was an all-American kid, right? Bored in school, loved sports, chased girls, drove a classic muscle car. I had a job. I'd never experienced this one time in my entire life. Because for the first 21 years of my life, I wasn't blind. And yet now, today, I experience situations like this all the time. Except for with one demographic. Except for with kids, children. Yeah, children are, they got questions. You guys, why? If you guys spend time around kids, you guys will hear that question a lot. I'm looking forward to that. My wife and I are just found out that we're having a baby. Baby girl. Warren, I'm not going to hit up Warren for babysitting. But Kids are curious about blindness. They're not afraid of it, right? They want to know what's behind the eye patch. They want to know why I'm wearing the eye patch. They want to know what the dog does. They want to know when I'm using it, what the white cane's for. They want to know why I'm blind. And I'm excited about that opportunity, right? I'm excited about answering those questions because it gives me an opportunity to educate these kids, to teach them that, hey, I'm blind. I got to do things way differently than you do, right? Because I can't see things. But I just do it differently. It doesn't mean I can't do it. I still get to live my dreams. I still get to live my dreams. I just have to do it a little differently. I'm no different, except how I do things is different. And then I ask them, what's your dreams? I'm getting ready to find this out. I spent a little bit of time with some babies, but I don't know if you guys have ever, babysat babies or toddlers or anything like that. If you have, can I get a round of applause for anybody who spent time around babies or toddlers who are also servant leaders? Round of applause. Yeah, I know, me too. Donut. Doesn't happen. Because babies and toddlers are not born servant leaders, right? They don't just pop out of the womb disciplined, great listeners, empathetic, hugely emotionally intelligent, putting other people's needs before theirs. It doesn't happen. In fact, babies, toddlers, they're super needy. They cry all the time when they don't get what they want, right? And they'll cry until they get it, whether it's entertainment, attention, food, toys. And when you give them the food, they drop a huge atomic brown bomb in their shorts. And then they're going to cry until you clean it up. They're not cleaning it up. Babies and toddlers don't welcome mom and dad when they get home. Oh my gosh, you look so tired. Let me cook dinner. No. Put your feet up. I'm going to clean the house. I'm going to pick up my toys so you stop stepping on them. I know that you're under a lot of stress right now. You've got that big promotion coming up. I know you've been preparing really heavily. And to take some of that stress off your shoulders, from now on, I'm just going to change my own diapers. They don't do that, right? That's learned. Leadership is learned. Sure, some maybe are natural leaders. But the principles of leadership, a servant leader, that stuff's learned. I don't think there's any difference with how Warren treated me. For this fundamental reason, this is why I also don't believe anyone's born a racist, a sexist, homophobic, ageist, or pops out of the womb with these own perceptions, beliefs, stigmas about people with disability. That stuff's learned. And that's why I'm so excited every time I get to interact with a child and teach them, show them, demonstrate. I'm different, but that doesn't mean I'm less than. In 2004, in the wake of this serious auto accident, I wake up in the hospital totally blind. My back is broken in 7 different places. I have an infection on my sinus cavity that's eating my eye from the inside out. Hugely painful. I have a brain infection that's killing me. I can't feel that infection. I can't feel the thing that's killing me. But I do feel the vancomycin being dumped into my veins over and over. I do feel the 50 staples in my head when I wake up from brain surgery. And I do feel that nurse, that mean nurse that wants to take a look at it every 30 seconds, rip that tape off my head. Those 50 staples looked exactly the same the last time you checked. But I'm also, at this time, incredibly anxious about my life because I don't even know how much longer I've got. I'm hugely depressed about what my life could have been, what it should have been, and what it now never will be. And so when I look at situations like Warren, and I look at myself back in 2004, I'm empathetic. I'm empathetic to that because I kind of did it to myself. Right? I wrote myself off. But nevertheless, I find myself in this situation. I'm a bag of bones. I can barely hold myself up. I look like Skeletor. I literally cannot hold myself up. I'm bent over all the time. And I'll never forget this night. It was the summer of 2004. I'm sitting in the kitchen. My mom is cooking chicken quesadillas because that's like one of my favorite foods. And my dad comes around the corner. He gets home from work. And like he would always do when he sees me, right? Because I can't hold myself up. I'm crumbled over. He says, "Chin up." Very commanding. And I don't move. Normally I do. Normally I pop myself up until I'm too fatigued to hold myself up, right? I desperately want to make my dad proud, but I don't move. And he knows something's wrong. He can see it in me. But what he can't see is that I just cannot find one reason for living. I can't find one. I want it to be over. I just want to die. He can't see that in me, but he knows something's wrong, so he comes over, he sits next to me, he puts his hand on my knee. He says, "Tanner, what's wrong? What can I do to help, son? Tell me, I'll do anything." Help? Dad, there's nothing you can do. I'm totally blind. My life is over. My life is meaningless. My life is worthless. Tanner, I know it's tough for you right now. I don't understand what it means to be blind. But I do know that you could be blind and you could be in a wheelchair. As a matter of fact, you should be. You could be blind in a wheelchair, and mentally, you should be a vegetable. Tanner, you should be dead. Son, I know that it's tough right now. It's always going to be tough for you. But let me tell you something. It could always be worse. It could always be worse? That might seem like my dad was kicking me while I'm down. But in fact, it was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. I mean, I've got my hands. I've got my feet. I can walk. I can talk. I can think. I can articulate. I can communicate. And isn't that valuable? Aren't those assets? Isn't that something that I can use to create a life worth living? Something of meaning? Can I build a life worth living with this? I knew in that moment that I can do it. But no one's going to do it for me. If I'm going to create this life, something meaningful, powerful, impactful, if I'm going to create a life worth living, it's going to be up to me to achieve it. It's interesting to me. It's quite interesting to me that I would have to lose my sight before I'd be able to look inside myself. That I'd have to lose my sight before I'd be able to see my value, the potential inside of me. So I start going. I start moving. Take that first step. And I'm coming to terms with the situation in which I find myself. This one day, a couple weeks later, I'm digging around in my closet. I'm looking for something. I don't even remember what it was. That wasn't important. But what is that my fingers came across this piece of leather. Curiosity, like her, gets the best of me, and I pull it out. Instantly, I know exactly what it is. It's my old baseball glove. And I can't help it. I put it on, and I catch the ball, and I crow up, and I throw the guy out at home plate. Just like I did thousands of times as a child. But I'm coming to terms with the situation in which I find myself. And I tell myself out loud, because I can't tell myself in the mirror anymore. I tell myself out loud, Tanner, that part of your life is over. Game over. So I took it off, I put it in the closet, and I walked away. 4 years later, I'm going to school full time. I'm working full time. I have very little time, but the one thing that I like to do at the end of my 15-hour day is I like to watch The Tonight Show. I want to catch the monologue. I love stand-up comedy. I think Chad's got a career in that if it doesn't work out in this medicine thing. And if everything works out just right, just right. If I get off work on time, because sometimes we have to stay late, if my ride picks me up on time and brings me home, like we don't catch a bunch of lights, and I step inside the house, the backpack drops off because I was at school earlier, and I flip on the remote, I fall into the couch. If everything works out just right for the past 2 years that I've been working and going to school, when I turn on the remote, everybody's clapping. Because The Tonight Show just started. But I turn on the television this one night, late May 2008, and there's a commercial. And I'm pissed. I'm pissed. It was Monday night. I knew headlines was next. And I'm pissed because that means I missed my favorite part. I missed the monologue. And so I'm sitting there. Stupid driver. And then I hear the music. It's Channel 4 News. And I'm blown away. Because, like I said, for 2 years, never one time was I home early enough to catch the news. And yet, for one reason or another, for a special reason, the universe made sure that I was home the one night that the news would play the one story that would feature the one sound that would change my life forever. And so the news broadcaster comes on and says, now here's a team who doesn't let anything come between them and the game they love to play. And that was when I heard the sound that would change my life forever. This looks a lot like a softball. But to me, it's so much more than that. This is baseball for the blind. And if you guys don't mind, because it means so much to me, for the rest of the talk, I'm just going to leave this on. So I love baseball, America's pastime. I had a lot of success in beat baseball. I still have a lot of success in beat baseball. I'm very, 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 very fortunate. That success had brought me to cross paths with this one coach in Tucson. He's a coach for Paralympic athletes in the javelin. And he finds out about me playing beat baseball, thinks I got some potential, and he organizes a meeting. And we meet up, and he says, Tanner, wow, beat baseball, I know the ball, it's so cool, and you swing, and you're great, and wow. Have you ever thought about throwing the javelin? Oh, my God. I laughed in that poor man's face. No, I didn't really think about blind guys throwing spears like that. I mean, just launching them. I could get arrested. I don't know. And but I'll try anything. So I try that. But if I don't know if there's any javelin throwers in here or know anything about that, but super stressful on the body, hugely stressful on the shoulder and the back, and with my back being broken, I put that idea down. Like, it wasn't my thing. So I put that idea down. And when I put that down, I was talking to somebody earlier, right? I was talking to Seema and Caden, right? I was talking about when I put that idea down, right? About the balls that we juggle in the air. Like, we can choose to put things down. And when we put things down like that, when I put that idea down, it allowed me to pick this other idea up, really focus on it. And is that if they let blind guys throw spears, what else can we do? Right then and there, in that moment, I decided I will be a U.S. Paralympian. My mom's here with us, and I called her. And I said, Mom, I'm going to be a Paralympian. She goes, when's that? When does that go down? Oh, it's next year. Oh, okay. I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to be a Paralympian, Mom. I'm so proud of you, Tanner. We hang up. January 2011, right? January 2011, every Saturday morning, I live in Tucson, Arizona at the time, and there's not a Paralympic track club in Tucson. I actually have to wake up on Saturday mornings at 4:30, race across town, catch the bus, go 100 miles up to Phoenix to practice for 2 hours. I catch the noon bus back home. I step into my house about 3 o'clock. So what are we doing? 10 hours of work for 2 hours of practice? Because that's what it takes. Every other moment is focused on becoming a Paralympian. I mean, this is a big goal. We got some big goals happening right now in this room. Every other moment is focused on becoming a Paralympian. That's training, nutrition, recovery, visualization, meditation, everything. And so when the dust settles on my 2011 track season, May 4th, first track meet, I qualify for nationals. June in Florida, at nationals, I make the U.S. national team for the first time. I literally become a professional athlete. I'm getting paid to play. Later that year at the 2011 Pan American Games, it's the championships between North and South America. Championship of Americas. I come home with a gold medal around my neck, and I'm ranked 4th in the world in the long jump. Doing everything, doing whatever it takes. So I'm on my way. Got the goal. Still 2011, I got a long way to go. And I know that in order for me to take it to the next level, because the Paralympics is not the Pan America Games. The Paralympics is like next level. And in order for me to step up to that level, I know I got to get out of Tucson. I mean, bless her heart, my wife, she put up with all my bull crap Take me to the gym, take me to the track. I'm not eating that crap, And, so I have to get out of Dodge. And so I put in my application at the Olympic Training Center. I know there's beds available, and I put in my application. I think I got a really good shot. I'm a national team athlete, international gold medalist. I'm ranked 4th in the world. I'm relatively new to the sport. I still have a lot of potential. And it's denied. Whoop, just like that. Maybe I need to get in front of the decision maker, the director of high performance. I'll get in front of her, I'll get a meeting, I'll show her the fire burning inside of me, that no one wants this more than me, and that I will do whatever it takes to get there. I know she's gonna see it in me, and she's gonna give me a bed. And in that meeting, she told me right to my face, Tanner, hey, we're just gonna give that bed to somebody else, because another blind athlete needs it more than you do. And so I kicked her in the shin, and I ran out of there. And I hit the wall on the way out. And 2012 season isn't going that great. And in my meditation, in my visualization practice, even though everything around me sucks, everything sucks, I'm still seeing myself at the training center. Right? I'm seeing myself run down the track. I'm seeing myself jumping. I'm seeing myself in the weight room. I'm seeing myself getting the coaching that I need, the support that I need. And that's when it hits me. Boom. If they won't give me a bed, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up to the training center. I'm going to show up to the track. I'm going to show up to the weight room. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to show up. And I'm just going to make my bed somewhere else. I'm a national team athlete. I can do that. So there's a huge theme here with Memorial Day weekend. That was the weekend that I got out of the hospital in 2004. That was about the time that I heard beat baseball for the first time. That was when I moved to the Olympic Training Center. And 5 days later, Thursday, I moved there on a Sunday. 5 days later on Thursday, at my first track meet, I jumped the biggest jump of my career thus far. It was huge. News gets around quick, right? Friday, the meetings begin. Monday, I get a call. I get a call because they're calling to let me know that I now have a bed at the Olympic Training Center. They dropped that other blind athlete off down the street and said, good luck. No, they didn't do that. I would feel terrible. But they gave me a bed. So September 4th, 2012, 16 months to the day after my first track meet, 16 months to the day, I've got the flag on my chest. I've got the U.S. flag on my chest because I'm representing the United States at the Paralympic Games. It's one of the greatest moments of my life. Before I went, my mom told me how proud she was. And she told me what I already knew, right? She told me, I don't know how you did it, son, but you did it. When you told me that day, I didn't think it was possible. But you made it happen. You did it. You created the life worth living. So if you guys can, imagine with me for a moment. Imagine back when we're kids. When Chad and I were kids, there was still black and white television. I know we're a lot older than many people in here. But when we're kids, right, we're playing on the playground. We're running around with other kids, right? Maybe we're hanging upside down from the monkey bars. We're playing kickball, maybe baseball. Maybe we're climbing the jungle gym. Or we're playing cards, chess, checkers. We're inside. Right? We're playing with other kids. Not only are we playing with other kids, but we're sharing things with each other. We're sharing our dreams. The big dreams about what we want to be when we grow up. right? Some of us say, I'm going to be a teacher. Some say, I want to be an astronaut. Like many people in here, I want to be a doctor. And some, maybe some of you, might even said, I want to be the president of the United States of America. But then there's another child. Maybe they're sitting on a bench on the side of the playground. They're segregated, excluded from everybody else. Maybe they're in another room by themselves. They're not playing cards, checkers, or chess. There's another kid, alone, full of potential, full of possibility, full of dreams about what they want to be when they grow up. And this child, all by themselves, they're all by themselves because they just happen to be blind. They just happen to be blind. And I wonder what they dream about. What does a blind child dream about being when they grow up? In fact, what does any child with a disability dream about being when they grow up? Because eventually, they're going to share that dream. Maybe it's with a friend, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's their parent, maybe it's somebody that they look up to, and maybe it's somebody like Warren. Maybe it's somebody who comes from the perspective, how are you going to do anything else? Tell me about it. How are you going to do anything else? Is that the first thing we want a child with big dreams to hear when they share their dreams? What's going to happen? It makes me think about Donald Porterfield, who graduated law school blind and now is a criminal prosecutor in southern Arizona. It makes me think about Doway and Marcus Schmidt. Like me, two totally blind electrical engineers. I'm not an electrical engineer. I can barely even say it. I'm totally blind. It makes me think about Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, right? She had that horrible shooting, and now she is legally blind. We'll keep that between us, right? She and I share the same neuro-ophthalmologist. Because we'll keep that between us because, like Gabby Giffords knows, I know that there's a huge blind spot over America, over corporate America, over our society at large, that when they see difference, when they see disability, like Warren, they see impossibility. They see inability. And they wonder, how is anybody like that going to do anything like me? How are they going to do anything else? Then I think about Cypress Habib, the lieutenant governor of Washington State, the first totally blind politician to achieve that level of success in politics. I think about Dan Green, born totally blind. He went to Northwestern on an educational scholarship, studied physics, graduated with a master's degree in physics. Born totally blind, Northwestern, master's degree in physics. Now he writes missile programs for Raytheon Missile Systems. It makes me think about Albert Rizzi, also totally blind. He lost, like me, he lost his sight later in life and found the barriers, the struggles that he never faced before, and created my blind spot to make sure that we tear those things down, that we change antiquated beliefs, social stigmas, stereotypes about people with disabilities, that we don't see disability, we see ability. Just might be a little bit different. It also makes me think about my American dream, my all-American dream, and Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery in the 1800s. He became a leader in the abolitionist movement after that. And after he escaped slavery, he returned back to the slave owners. He went back to talk with them, to communicate with them, to educate them on why slavery is wrong, why it's immoral, what they're doing to human capital. And through those conversations, because of that, in 1855, he wrote, "It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men." It's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. So what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? That's my all-American dream. That we begin building stronger children. And like I said before, they're listening, they're watching, they're observing us, they're mimicking us. They want to be just like us. And so it begins right now with a choice. How do we build strong children? We do it through leadership, through practitionership, through demonstrating. We demonstrate to kids how to treat people of difference or disability just like they're us. We treat them no differently. We demonstrate that by not looking at somebody who has a different race or religion, sex or sexual orientation, or disability any differently. We really demonstrate that by not only how we interact with individuals, how we treat them, how we talk to them, how we behave in front of them, not just in public. We demonstrate this by how we teach our children how to engage with other people ethically, equally, in public, but we demonstrate this behind closed doors. A lot of things happen, a lot of learning happens for our children behind closed doors. And that's why I'm so excited about it. So I ask you, will you join me? Will you join me in building strong children and make a decision about how you treat other people, different or not, disabled or not? Will you treat them equally as you? And will you help me demonstrate to our young minds that have yet to be soiled with an unconscious bias, with a belief or a thought system or speech patterns that treat people of difference and people of disability lower or less than anyone else? I hope that you will join me. It's my hope, because building strong children, that's my all-American dream. Thank you so much. I'm Tanner Gers. I got way off, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tanner. That was amazing.
I'm just glad I stayed facing forward the whole time.
One of the things that we'd like to do is give you guys a few minutes for Q&A. Does anybody have any questions that they want to toss to Tanner?
I love Q&A. I'm not offended easily. Please ask me questions. Okay.
Oh, here we go. We've got one.
Mike Runner.
What are the products that your company makes that you found are the most successful in the sense of made the biggest difference, not necessarily, been the most financially successful?
Quite the interesting question. So what have made the biggest difference with regards to what? Is that accessibility, or you mean making a difference at large?
Any way you want to interpret that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, well, I think the biggest opportunities happen when we engage the leaders, the decision makers, the CEO, the C-suite with the conversation about people with disability. When we make it personable or relatable, when they can, when it hits home, that's when it's the most powerful, because then they start to make decisions that are guided by that belief. Sometimes they need to be reminded by that, but getting Albert and myself in front of these decision makers really kind of drives home like how much equity they're leaving off the table by excluding people like us. I mean, there's a huge amount of disposable income that people with disabilities have across the world. I think it's like $1.3 billion in the United States alone on an annual basis. And so, who am I talking to? Is it somebody like a CFO that needs to make financial decisions? Right, when they hear $1.3 billion left off the table, that kind of perks some ears up, right? But I think the most successful thing is when we're able to make things accessible for people like me to live more independent lives. Like earlier in 2017, we remediated the American Airlines platform, right? So now I can book a flight. I flew here on American, right? And so they've been really helpful with me in terms of making sure everything happens, where not just the person that's answering the phone call or doing the web development is making sure that things are accessible for me and that I'm comfortable, but it gets down to the flight attendants, right? The people at the airport, making sure that I'm comfortable, that I know, because some people with disabilities have never flown before. So do they know how to put on the seatbelt, right? If they've never been shown that, they've never seen that before, do they know that the thing comes down from the top? And so I know that because I fly all the time. But when an American Airlines flight attendant comes up to me and says, hey, do you know how to do this? I just want to double check, right? Some people might get offended by that, some people with disability, right? Because they don't see both sides of the equation, right? But when somebody makes sure that something is accessible to me in person, that stems from a web development perspective, an online access, and then that's seen all the way through to the end experience, that is some of the most successful stuff for me. Because not only are those C-suite executives making decisions that make things more inclusive for myself, but that message is communicated down to the frontline employee who now is making decisions with an awareness and an experience and a learning that allows everyone to have a good experience. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, this may be too big a question, but often the message to young people, actually children, often goes out through the educational process. What are the best procedures and...
You get real feedback. That's how dynamic you are.
Electrical. What are the best practices and procedures that limit the message that's often conveyed in our educational system that different is inferior?
I think it stems around fear. Like Warren was coming from a place of fear, like how would I do this myself? I don't want to do anything wrong. I think in society we make a lot of decisions on our behavior. Our behavioral thesis is centered around embarrassment and fear, right? I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to do something wrong. Instead of just coming from a more intentional place of just trying to do the right thing, being inclusive and treating someone as an equal, right? So, and so I want to answer your question specifically. So what I think is how we do that. with the educational system, like K through 12, that's really, that's a sticky situation, right? Because how many, we got what, 12, 13, 14 teachers, depending on how long they're in the educational system, how many touch points they have with a different professional who may have different beliefs about somebody with a disability or an alternative ability, right? They may not be disability ready. And so this is so early on in, we're in such the infancy of awareness and how to treat individuals with disabilities, like the right way. It's really tough to say. And there's so many varying levels of disability, right? Like my disability, I didn't realize that everybody wasn't totally blind. I thought blindness was blindness, right? Like I just thought it was one thing. So someone who's like super high or high functioning, low vision, they don't need the same things that I need. And because of that, right, because of that, they might bite someone's head off when they say, I can open the door, like I can tie my shoe, like back off, right? And I hope part of the educational process is teaching other people with disabilities who might be doing that not to do it. Because I've been in the situation where I've asked for help, I'm lost, and I can't get it. I just hear footsteps. And I'm like, hey, can you help me? Can you please help me? And someone just runs away, right? Maybe because the last time they helped somebody with a disability, their head got bitten off. So it's a very complex question of how do we begin the process of ensuring that our educational system is adept and apt of conversating, accommodating individuals with disabilities. It depends, it varies, but I think it begins with understanding that everybody's different, everybody's needs are different, and we have to ask, how can we help you? And more pointedly, what can I do to make sure that you have everything you need? Right? That's a different question than how can I help you? What can we get you? What is the best way to set you up for success? How can I ensure that everything that's going on here is accessible to you? You know, those kind of open-ended questions, besides, can I help you? Go a long way, because it allows the person asking the question to understand specifically on a case-by-case basis what they can do to support people with special needs. Is there a follow-up question?
I have a totally different question, not a follow-up question.
Oh,
Dr. Swenson, did you have another question?
I just want to make sure that I'm answering that concisely enough or clearly enough for you.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, and what was your name again? Rand. Thanks, Dr. Rand. Appreciate it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Tanner.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming today. This was an incredible talk.
Yeah.
My name is Bree. I'm a med student here, and I think there's a good number of health professionals or potentially aspiring health professionals in the audience.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you have any examples or memories or even advice for health professionals, maybe times when they underestimated you or helped you to take steps you didn't know you could take. Just in general, if you have any advice for those who are in the health field.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's been so many, right? Like, so many doctors. I think that the best way to help somebody is to ask those open-ended questions, right? Because having a disability is so dynamically diverse, right? Like I was saying, you know, like Alex in here, right? She has a different ability than I do, right? And she probably doesn't need the same things that I do. I know that she doesn't need the same things that I do. She probably doesn't even like to discuss it because it's not really relevant. It's not important. There are some things that she might need, and if those aren't met, then she can communicate exactly what she needs to step it up to that next level. For me, where it's a little bit more intense, a little bit more involved, right? People make assumptions about what's possible for me, like Warren, And instead of asking those open-ended questions about, if I'm in the doctor's office, right? This happens all the time. Like, I come into the doctor's office and they're like, "Can you sign right here?" And I'm like, "You mean like right here? Or right here? Or over here?" You know, I'm empathetic to that too, because I work really hard to try to make eye contact. I know that a lot of language and communication happens just through the eyes alone. Like, you know, you give that person that look, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get that, right? So when you can be like, you know, I don't get that either. You know, so asking the questions up front, like, "Hey, I need you to sign something," is, what can I do to make sure that you can do this? You know, how can I make this better for you? I want to make sure that this experience is perfect for you. I understand that people have different levels of ability. What's the best way to accommodate you? Do you need accommodations? You know what I'm saying? So if you come from that place of like openness, like, "Hey," like, people are blown away that I can sign stuff, right? And they're like, "How do you sign stuff?" And I'm like, "With dreams and hopes." You know? If you just ask those open questions and you check the ego, and you don't get upset, because you don't get upset when someone in my position bites your head off because they had a bad day, right? Like, no one makes a judgment. So like for the airport example, right? Like, well, you know, flights are delayed, you know, things are getting canceled, people are getting pushed back, and then everybody's yelling at that gate agent, right? That poor gate agent. They're just like, "Oh man, like, I flew the plane, right? Like, I made this executive decision to snow us in for a week, you know?" And everybody's yelling at her, right? But she doesn't take that as like, all humans are bad, everybody wants to yell at me. She understands the context of the situation. And so when somebody with a disability might be frustrated with you, they might be offended with you, they're a lot more easily offended than I am, please don't take that to heart, right? A lot of times when we're consulting corporations on employment best practices, just because it doesn't work with one person with a disability doesn't mean that's true for everyone, right? Like, you fired a man before, right? Yeah, you fired a man before, but that doesn't mean all men suck, right? So just be conscious of, everybody has bad days. Sometimes people with disabilities they're a little more aggressive, they're a little more spicy, I like to say, and come from that place of like, what can I do? I need you to sign something. What can I do to help you sign this? How can I make this better? Is there an accommodation that I'm not familiar with? Because I know that people with disabilities have differing abilities, and I just want to make sure that you're set up for success. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
We've got a different mic going here if there's any other questions. Okay.
Probably don't need a mic unless you want me.
Well, it's the camera's recording it, so.
Okay. Hello? Which side is it?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry?
I said, can you hear me?
Right.
I liked how you talked about development of dreams and then achieving those dreams afterwards.
Yeah.
And how we can improve that in people with disabilities.
Sure.
My question is, specifically with people with cognitive disabilities, how do we make sure that they're able to develop dreams? And I know it's interperson specific, but how can we as a community and a country improve that dream development and allowing them to achieve dreams as well?
Love this question, because this is why I'm so passionate about children, right? Because I see there's a lot of institutions, programs across the country, and they bring their parents, or the parents bring their kids, right, who have a different ability, right? They're not mainstream. And they have protected them and shielded them and set the expectation bar so low, so effing low, that child doesn't jump. If they meet that expectation bar, they don't jump much higher than it. And so with a cognitive impairment, just like any other impairment, there's so many different levels of ability. So if someone can understand like they can comprehend, they have like, they can understand, like engage in a conversation, then I say continue having the conversation. But I also know this, is that when I was in a coma, right, they didn't know if I was gonna walk, they didn't know if I was gonna be a vegetable, they didn't know if I was gonna be blind, they didn't know anything, right? And what my parents did is just filled that ICU room with the hugest love and possibility, hugest love and potential, hugest love and conversation, right? Ultimately, that's a choice. And I can only begin to imagine how stressful it is for a parent to understand, to come to terms with the situation that my child has this hurdle in front of them. And maybe they'll never get through it. They'll never jump over it. But it's still a choice of how you're going to talk to your kids, right? When I woke up from the coma, I knew who had came to visit me. I saw them in my dreams. I knew they were there. I also knew, I put it together when I learned how the ICU floor works, how even family can't go or stay during the shift change, right? When everything's getting cleaned up, I had this repeating dream that my mom and dad left, and then it was all hell broke loose. Like I'm tied to my bed. I'm tied to my bed, and these like orcs and clowns come after me, and I can't do anything. I know they're coming to kill me, right? And that's metaphorically speaking. I know that the ICU nurses and stuff and staff aren't coming to kill me, but I know that wasn't an enjoyable experience, even though I'm cognitively incapacitated at the time. So I'm a huge believer in bigger things. I'm a big dreamer. And maybe 10 years down the line, maybe 5 years, maybe 50, something might happen, might change medically, the intertwining of technology and medicine, where they can do something about that cognitive impairment. And I would just hate it. I would hate it from the bottom. My heart aches to think that a parent might make the choice to treat their child like they're two, only because, or even less than, because just right now, it's so difficult. They can't understand right now. At least they're not able to articulate or communicate or convey their understanding at some deep level. I feel like we can, even when we're checked out. And so I would send that message of encouragement, of belief, and I would try to share that perspective, make that paradigm shift for that parent. I don't know the ultimate answer, but I do know that if I was in that situation, if I was that person, even if I didn't really understand what was going on, I know that at my heart that I wish that I would be treated with the utmost respect and love, just like anybody else would.
Got another one. Hold on a sec.
Yep.
Hi, I wanted to ask the sort of counterpart, probably the more difficult question.
Oh my God.
Is that if you have someone that has a disability, how do you counsel and advise them that, just like with people who have no noted disabilities, not everything in life is possible? And in recognizing that gets complicated by the fact that you don't want to confuse the disability with the fact that we all can't, I'd like to play in the NBA, but I don't think it's going to happen. So where do you counsel people that at some point in time, as much as we want to be supportive, that you also may have to get people to step back from what is a dream and go to another path?
Well, you know, I'm a little insulted because I'm prepping right now for my NFL game day. You know, no, I'm just teasing. You know, there is that kind of thing, right? So when it, you know, Chad was dropping some game on me where he was explaining the technology that's going on right now in the military, right? Where there's pilots who now they don't even have to aim their guns, right? They just like look, and there's like There's these heads-up like displays where the helmet is communicating with the windshield, which is communicating with the turrets, and things are just happening by look. It makes me think about Stephen Hawking, who's writing books using eye movement. So with regards to something like a dream like playing in the NBA, it also makes me think of another young man in Minnesota who had a traumatic experience, medical condition happen. And he was a freshman in high school. He was starting on the varsity team for ice hockey in the state championship holder in Minnesota, and which is huge, right? And he was already being scouted by everyone, probably going to skip college altogether and go right into the NHL. And then as a freshman in high school, he wakes up in the hospital, unable to speak, unable to move, condemned to his bed. And through a lot of therapy and a lot of belief, he ends up start walking again. And he ends up going to college. And he's changed his dream from playing in the NHL to still being in the Stanley Cup, but as a coach or as some type of support staff. And so when we can't physically do the things that we want to do because maybe we're born with a disability or something like what happened to me happens, maybe we can think a little bit more creatively about what's possible. I don't think it's impossible for any person with a disability to be in the NBA Finals. They just may not be, doing tomahawk dunks in that game. So I'm guessing that you probably have a follow-up question to that.
No, that was pretty good. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think we might have time for one more question if there's anyone else who wants to throw one out before we wrap up. Oh, okay, here. There you go.
At the risk, you said you don't mind any questions. It's often hard as a normally abled person to ask the question, what is your disability? And how to ask that in a way, or what happened, or can you tell me the story? And I don't think you mentioned it at any point what happened to you. I'm sure everybody's curious. If you want to share that story, I'd be interested. But it's often hard to actually broach that with people. It's like with any patient that we take care of, sometimes questions are harder to ask.
Sure. Yeah, I think that stems from that embarrassment type of thing, right? I think I'm a pretty good salesman for other people's stuff. Like, you should see me spit some fire on some other people's stuff, right? But for me, when I'm selling my speaking services, people tell me all the time how great it is, right? But I still have this problem with selling myself because maybe I'm embarrassed about the fact that, what if I fail, right? What if I step up to hit a home run and I strike out, right? And so I think that it is tough to ask some of the questions, but we only get better at asking the questions by practicing them, by actually doing it. And I think that one of the perspectives that I would like to use from that is some of the tactics that I use. I was trying to educate my mom on this the other day. She's gonna have a big ask at work. She's got a big ask coming up. And I was saying to her that, you should set them up for it to be something so horrific and so detrimental that your ask seems so much smaller, right? So applying this to you, I might say, hey, you know what? I'm so new at this. I've never interacted with somebody with a disability before. I can only imagine the struggles that you have to face, and you're probably going to think I'm a super asshole for the question I'm about to ask you because I really have no idea what I'm talking about. And you set it up like that. And then when you say, how can I help you? What's the best way for me to support you? Can you tell me about your disability? When you set it up like that, instinctually as humans, we're like, what is she about to say? And you come from that place of vulnerability. anticipating their hugely gross reaction, and it's something that's not gross, and it's honest and it's open, you're going to have a lot better results.
Thank you, that's great.
Yeah. But to answer your question about my accident, so I had this Pontiac Grand Prix. It's a beautiful car. Fresh wax white paint on some serious chrome rims. You know, Slim Shady, right? And I'm just driving too fast. I don't know if I love driving fast as much as I just hate hitting the brakes. And this car is governed to stop at 127 miles per hour. I know that because I would hit it often on this road. It could go way faster than that, but the chip, the computer inside of it prevented it from going faster. And so that's what I was trying to hit. And I'm dipping and diving inside and out of traffic. It's a 2-lane road, one going each way, dirt on either side. And I'm passing this steakhouse. It's called Webb's Steakhouse on Old Spanish Trail. And I'm coming into a turn, and I'm coming in way too fast. And it's too late. And so I drift into the dirt. And I make a feeble attempt to try to get out of it. And the car comes around, right? Goes across the street and flies over a 40-foot embankment. And it's flying through the air. And right before it lands upside down, a big Palo Verde tree, this tree native to Arizona, or to the desert, like I know what I'm talking about, comes through my windshield and impales me in the face. Just a couple of days ago, I met with a lady who was riding her bicycle down the street and hurt it. And like I said, it was this 40-foot embankment. So she's coming up the hill, and they hear the crash. And she says it sounded like bombs were going off. And she looks up the hill, and she sees like this massive dust cloud kind of coming up. And so the tree, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, saved my life, right? Tree impales me in the face, blows me halfway out the rear windshield, and then we land, and I break my back. And I'm still conscious. So it hit me right here, right? All this is bone, is implant, forehead, right? This is implant. My jaw, I can't even stick my finger between my teeth. It's all plated up. And she couldn't stop telling me the other day how much glass was in my mouth. And I'm trying to talk, but I'm gurgling and choking on my blood. And I'm trying to pull myself from the wreckage. And about 75 minutes after emergency services first got there, the helicopter landed. To get me back up the embankment, she was telling me how one of the EMS, the rural EMS, was just useless. Like, he saw me, and he was just shaking. Couldn't stop shaking, couldn't do anything. The other guy's checking my blood pressure, because that's a top priority right now. No body board, no neck brace, no head brace, nothing. She runs up the hill to go grab the body board. And when she gets back to the top, each of them has one leg and one hand. And they're carrying me up the hill. You know, they already decided, right? They saw me, they took one look at me, and they're like, forget about being conscious. Like, how is that dude still even alive? He's DOA. We're going to treat this dude like DOA. They get me back up to the street. They put me on the body board. And I'm just squeezing her finger until life support gets there. And very grateful that level 1 trauma unit in Tucson, Arizona saved my life. So that's what happened.
I'm really sorry that happened, but what an amazing man you are, and thank you so much for sharing it.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, y'all's attention means the world to me.
Thank you so much again, Tanner. Let's all give him a great round of applause here.
Right? 20 feet. Wow.
So one of the things that we like to do is give a gift just to show a little bit of our appreciation for you making the trip up here to speak to us. So I've got a present here for you.
Is that the Applebee's gift card?
It is. It is a $10 Applebee's gift card.
There you go. Yeah, appreciate you,
Thank
man.
you. And also, if you guys didn't already, Mrs. Simone Gers also made the trip, Tanner's mother. So let's give her a great round of applause as well. We got a gift too. Sure.
I'd just like to say that Tanner's life, I can't keep up with him. You know, like he travels all over the world. This is the first speech that I've attended of his. I'm an academic. I'm hopefully going to be retiring in the next year, but I've taught at the college level my whole career. And he said to me, I said, well, what's on your horizon? You know, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm going to go to Dartmouth. I'm like, I'm coming to that one. So it's my first time to see him speak, and I'm so glad that I got to do this with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.